let's talk about buying Canadian. Looks like it's made with Canadian apples.
It's going to say Canada Choice, and I don't know what that means.
Squeezing the truth out of apple juice. This is your marketplace.
Let's pick a nice branch like this. I'm probably gonna want maybe 4 apples on that branch.
Brett Schuyler is an apple farmer, and he wants to let you in on an industry secret.
It's very unlikely you'll be drinking juice from this orchard. More to the point, you may think you're drinking juice from this orchard and not be. I think there would be a lot of people feeling really deceived if they knew the whole story. But right now, you can't get the whole story. You look at that product, how do you know where it's from?
Interesting question, especially when you are face to face with a wall of juice.
100% apple juice,
Not from concentrate.
Anything on there about where the apples are from? No.
Juice from concentrate, but no idea where the apples come from.
Wow, these sure seem Canadian.
From concentrate, so it doesn't say where the apples are from. This is in the heart of British Columbia. Where are the apples from?
If this farmer is stumped, can consumers sort it out? We take some of what's for sale on those shelves to the street. Well, actually, to the park.
Where do you think the apples that were used to make this juice came from?
The apple farm.
The ground.
Canada.
Maybe quite far away. Do you know, I actually have no idea.
I've never seen this before,
Okay.
so I feel like this was
Okay.
Maybe this one too?
Product of Canada.
Okay. So this is Canadian.
The Canada Choice here?
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's made in Canada?
This says Canada Choice.
There's a lot that say Canada Choice.
Canada Choice. Canada Choice, and I don't know what that means, like that just Canada likes them.
Okay.
Maybe.
Canada Choice.
What does that mean? Meet lawyer Glenford Jameson. His specialty? Helping food companies follow labeling laws.
Canada Choice is a grade of apple juice and of apple juice from concentrate. There are 2 grades, Canada Choice and Canada Fancy. Canada Fancy is marginally better and more apple-y, let's say, than Canada Choice. But that's really what you're being told.
So Canada Choice doesn't actually have anything to do with where the apples are from.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean the apples to make the juice are Canadian.
Sure, they could be from anywhere.
Canada Choice is an old school term from decades ago, back when apple juice was made from apples grown here. Fast forward, and the apple juice biz has gone global. The ingredients are cheap commodities shipped around the world. Mostly apple juice boiled down into a thick concentrate, then mixed with water back in Canada.
In terms of where the product originates from, like where the apples are from, you're not given a lot, and you're not required by law to know. Like, it's not required to be provided to you as a consumer. So setting out the country of origin is a voluntary statement.
Yep, companies don't have to tell you, and our testers don't like the taste of that.
Why do you think they don't put where the apples are really coming from on the label?
Because they're not being made to. And because they think that people wouldn't want to know. Like, well, that it wouldn't be where people want them to be from.
Maybe they're afraid that people might choose differently if they knew where the ingredients were coming from.
If apple come from China, it might be, like in the process, it might be not so fresh.
This is not a big ask on the part of the Canadian consumer to identify where things are coming from. And it doesn't seem terribly fair to the Canadian consumer not to know.
Made in Canada from domestic and imported ingredients. So maybe they use Canadian sugar, but Polish apple, and they say it's made in Canada. Maybe I will read in French. No, it's the same. I don't
think it's a language barrier.
No,
I think it's a label problem.
I don't understand what does that mean.
Since the labels don't tell us, it's time to squeeze out facts from some common juice brands. We call up their customer hotlines.
Thank you for calling President Choice.
First up, Loblaws, no name.
I'm just wondering if you can tell me where the apples came from that made this juice.
So you want the country of origin? I can certainly help you with that. So I'm going to put you on a brief hold so I can just pull out that information for you, okay?
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. for holding. Most of the ingredients are from China.
Okay, great.
The apples come from various parts.
Some of the apples are from Canada.
They come from the U.S.
There's also China, New Zealand,
Argentina, Poland, Chile, so it's a bit of a mix.
Any guesses on where the apples that are making that apple juice concentrate is coming from?
I'm guessing maybe US.
What if I told you China?
China?
No, or Poland. No.
Even if it's not grown in Canada, if it's grown somewhere else, just say it. Grown in China.
Just be very clear about exactly where things are coming from.
That is how it works in the USA. It's the law. We get our hands on 2 Minute Maid juice boxes. Check out the American version.
So it's one, the US, Argentina, Chile, China, and Turkey again.
And the Canadian Moose juice box?
This one, nope.
It's not there, is it?
No, not again.
Maybe Minute Maid's Canadian hotline has the answers.
Don't have a specific source where the fruit comes from.
Okay.
It's proprietary to the company.
What? In Canada, it's a secret? And Minute Maid's not the only one playing coy. Canada's #1 juice maker, Lassonde, makes loads of brands, including Allen's.
Usually it's from Canada.
You think that the apples are from Canada?
Yeah.
But you're not 100% sure?
No, but most of our products are made and they are made in Canada and they are from Canada.
She's not sure, so we keep asking. A week later, Lassonde calls us back.
Unfortunately, we don't have a specific answer to give you. It can come from a variety of places, including North America, South America, Asia, and Europe. So it is possible that it can come from any of those places.
And like Minute Maid, Lassonde has 2 labels. One for its American juice boxes, where it's crystal clear where the apples are coming from, and then Canada's, where you have absolutely no clue. Back at the farm,
Contains apple juice concentrate from the USA, Argentina, Chile, China, and Turkey. So
I show Brett some of those labels.
Just putting a phone number on there and making the consumer call and sit on hold and wait and find out. Does that seem like the right way to do it?
absolutely not. Who's gonna call? I mean, it's not that hard to do, and it is a great example looking at what they've done in the States to just put it on the label.
Concentrating vitamin C.
Most of us have to get our food from grocery stores, so these companies have a lot of power over us. When you have power, you have the responsibility to be truthful about what you're making and what you're putting out there.
It's harvest time in Brett Schuyler's orchards, one of the largest in Ontario. About 300 bins of apples are picked each day, but next to none of this will end up in your juice box. It's the same story across the country. Canada grows 20 million bushels of apples per year, and they're mostly for munching.
Oh my gosh! Can I bob for apples? Look at it!
These are Macintosh.
But are these apples for juice or are these?
Those all fresh apples. So like actually these, we picked these last week. There'd be less than 5% juice.
Brett just wants to grow perfect apples like these for eating. Because remember, there's a huge supply of cheap concentrate, which means juice makers in Canada don't have to pay Canadian farmers much for their dented juice apples.
For this apple here, back to the grower, let's say we get 25 cents a pound. This apple here, this is going down to 5 cents a pound.
That's insane.
Yeah, and the spread would be a lot bigger, but that just is what it is. So you try very hard not to have any defects.
What do you see as the problem with the labeling rules as it stands right now? What needs to change?
What needs to change is you need to know where your juice is coming from.
And guess who can make that change? Our labeling police, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Nothing on there about where those apples came from or the concentrate.
And so the law itself does not require you to actually put this information on this type of product.
Wouldn't that be the most transparent thing to do for consumers? The best case scenario?
So, you know what? Transparency is a very, very good point.
Aline Dimitri is an executive director at the CFIA.
It's about striking the balance between information that is immediate and that gives you the right signals and having the entire set of information.
What about the signals Allen's is sending about its juice?
It says a Canadian favorite. There's a maple leaf. Everything about this makes me think I'm getting a juice made with Canadian apples.
For me, when I look at something like this that says a Canadian favorite, it does not necessarily mean that it's a Canadian product. And I actually think that that is part of the issue, that we need to learn how to actually collectively read the labels to make sure that we are not inferring certain things that are not intended on the label.
But that sounds like you're blaming the consumer for that. Isn't the onus on these guys to be honest and truthful about what's actually in here? And if the rules aren't clear...
Have they lied? Have they told you that it was from a country and it's not?
Do you know what that sounds like to me? Sounds like consumers are taking a backseat to industry.
I really don't think so. We listen to consumers. We actually do surveys to understand what consumers have to say.
Well, we're listening too. After hearing your complaints, here's what we came up with.
So this is apple juice from imported concentrate. Then, instead of Canada Choice, we've come up with meets Canadian juice standards.
Okay.
For ingredients, Canadian water, concentrated apple juice from China, Chile, Turkey, Poland, etc.
That is very interesting. I can't make promises, but certainly I do appreciate the effort, and we'll take it back and see how it can play within the mix of how we're moving forward on labeling.
You can keep it on your desk, and then you'll never forget Marketplace.
And I like the fact that there's multiple apples.
Yes.
It's not just one kind.
You got it. We also put prepared in Canada from domestic ingredients, water, it's the only thing from here, and imported apple juice concentrate. That way there's no confusion about the fact that the only thing Canadian here would be the water and everything else came from somewhere else.
We have a lot of water in Canada.
We sure do. Palm twist up.
So I won't get to drink its juice.
Perfect.
But I finally get to eat a Honey Crisp straight from the tree.
This is so good.
Hard to beat that crunch, eh?
Yeah, and it's super juicy.
So they eat good now, but it's that temptation because they will get better.
How will it get better?
You don't think it could be a little sweeter?
No, I think it's really sweet.
That's why people pay for it.
It tastes like sunshine.